Those are remarkable, wonderful pictures there. Well, for more on that historic visit and US-China trade ties, I'm joined by Einar Tangen, live from Beijing, where it's early in the morning, and he is a political and economic affairs commentator. Now, you and me, we're about the same age, and I remember the BBC reporting on that visit when I was a very young boy. I thought I'd just give you the opportunity to tell us what your memories might be, Einar.
Yes, well, I was actually living in Washington, D.C. at the time, so my memories are vivid because people were talking about it. It was something that was on everybody's lips. I remember the Mao suits, kind of looking at these kind of Michelin man things where people were walking around in either gray or blue, sometimes khaki. And also, the pictures of the panda, the ping pong diplomacy. I don't know that I fully grasped it at the time, but I did understand that change was afoot.
Right. And of course, the trade relationship between the two countries really took off, particularly under Deng Xiaoping, I seem to remember. What do you think are the highlights and the low points of the trade relationship over the past 50 years?
Well, obviously Nixon's visits opens the door, and then WTO is the next big milestone. China's economy starts to really take off. It's at that time around less than 2% of the world's GDP, and today it's about 14%. The U.S. And back in that time, 1960, was about 40% of the world's GDP. And then that switched over to today, where it's about 24%. So you've seen this kind of economic rise and fall. It's not that the U.S. has lost trade. It's just it's lost trade in comparison, GDP, in comparison to other countries. So these are, I think, the economic high points. In terms of working together, obviously it was a geopolitical issue about Russia at that time, which kind of drew these two countries together. Both had their own issues, and it was kind of part of this kind of encirclement at that time that the U.S. wanted to push. China was obviously a willing participant, but now things have changed. Russia, the three-party relationship has changed completely, and now China and Russia are on one side and the U.S. is on the other.
Now, seen from this part of the world, people say here, well, look, it's good that China produces goods that Americans want to buy, but on the other hand, China takes jobs away from Americans. What do you think is the truth behind that?
Well, it wouldn't be possible because, the jobs that were being taken to China were done by corporate America. And the reason they did it is they could pay somebody $1 or $2 an hour, as opposed to in the U.S. where they'd have to pay 5 or 10. If it was, very serious factory work, if you're talking about automobiles, remember, right. Back in the 70s, auto workers were earning $35,000 to $50,000 for working on the line. You just really, you could employ a whole team in China for the similar amount. So it was differentiated economies. Remember, on one side, you had corporate America moving jobs over, but there were benefits for the U.S. If you start looking since 2001, 2/3 of all the profits, the money, the free money, not free money, but the profits were going towards developed nations, and the United States was first amongst those. So although they gave up this industrial output, they certainly benefited from the extra money that was available to in terms of profits.
Now, we both know, don't we, that although this is a 50-year trade relationship now, of course, it's been somewhat strained in the last 4 or 5 years or so after President Trump. When you hear President Biden not rowing back on those Trump tariffs and increasing the number of corporations that Americans are not allowed to invest in, and having companies delisted at the New York Stock Exchange, and when you hear him say that the future of the trade relationship between Beijing and Washington is uncertain, and that it's all on the shoulders of Catherine Tai, who's his trade representative, that word uncertain, what does that tell you?
Well, it's really kind of a shorthand for this is a geopolitical contest, and the United States is concerned that its economic hegemony is being threatened by an upstart, China. The idea was that China would come into the economic world order through WTO, would, somehow there would be a regime change. Communism would fall away because it's, in the U.S. eyes, it's not a sustainable way of governance, and that China would become a free market society in the way of the United States. Well, it didn't happen, and instead of failing, China has been more and more successful. So this is an existential threat to the U.S. It's everything we believe in about our system of government, and the necessity of imposing it on the world is just not. This proves that it may not be true. And instead of reflecting on that, a lot of people are saying we're doubling down. You say, well, somehow China is cheating. We can't really point to where or how. We'll say things like they took jobs or they're stealing IP. It just doesn't really explain it, though. Why is it that U.S. continues to go down if we have this superior system? And China continues to rise, although we see it as a system that doesn't comport with what we think is normal.
And we could fill the next 50 minutes or so of the program, but we're not going to. Instead, we'll say, Einar, thank you very much. Appreciate it very much, especially the memories from 1972. Thank you. Well, now.